Is just a day full of events, and once again I'm joined by Sarah Brooks. She's an attorney here locally. And Sarah Brooks, good morning, and how are you?
Good morning to you. Good morning to you. I'm glad also to be here, and I look forward to interacting with people and to the presentation too.
So real quick, what do you have for us today?
So, as you heard, my name is Sarah Wairimo Brooks. I am an immigration attorney. I've been practicing for 12 years. I specialize in immigration, family law, and personal injury cases. I have two office locations. I have an location here in Marietta, Georgia, and I have another office in Dallas, Texas. And soon there'll be a third location, hopefully somewhere in Seattle.
Cool.
So today, for the fact that we're in a time where immigration is dynamic, so many things are happening, and because of the time constraint today, I'm just going to be touch basing about immigration mostly. Yes, mostly I'll be talking about a lot of the issues that has been impacting us currently, like right now. Mostly about these immigration stops that we've been having, what to do if you're stopped, how to protect your rights. I'm also going to touch base on a few things that are problematic, especially for us as parents who have young kids, or or even if not as parent, you may be a friend, you have a young person just coming from Kenya. Some of the pros and the don'ts that you need to warn them about, like the crimes that they need to stay away with that could actually affect them dramatically when it comes to their immigration in the future. So I'll be talking about those kind of stuff, and also I'll touch base a little bit on some of the defenses or some of the benefits that are there that most people don't know about, like the VAWAs, U visas, cancellation of removal. I'll touch base a little bit about those issues or those defenses that are helpful to our people, but our people don't know much about them.
Amazing. You can't avoid to have a chance to listen to this free information brought to you courtesy of Sarah Brooks. And in about a few minutes, she's going just to start the session right now. So stay tuned, take a note, watch with us. And just in case you want to get in touch with her and the office, these are the contacts that, where you can get her.
If you want, as I said, currently we have two locations. If you want to get us a hold of us on the Marietta, Georgia office, the phone number is 470-704-666-444. That number again is 470-704-666-44. If you want to get a hold of us using the Dallas, Texas office, the telephone number there is 214-888-6834. That number again is 214-888-6834. But if you don't remember those numbers, just Google Sarah Brooks Law Firm. We're on Google. Both our locations are on Google. You will see our business hours on Google, and you'll also see our telephone numbers on Google.
Amazing, amazing, amazing. So see you inside, and welcome.
My name is Sarah Wairimo Brooks. I've been practicing as an attorney for 12 years. I have two office locations. The recent one being that I'm very excited about is the one here in Marietta, Georgia. And I also have another office in Dallas, Texas. I specialize in immigration, family law, and personal injury. Those are my three practice areas. And today, because of we have so many things going on, I'm going to strictly keep it to immigration. Well, not strictly. I may throw in a few things here and there, but I'm going to keep it on immigration because that's where we are affected right now, and especially right now under Trump administration. I'm going to do it a very informal way. I'll go through quick on my presentation. If I'm too fast, tell me to slow down. And this is because I want to leave time for Q&A, because I find it's more effective when you do Q&A, because some of you might have come here for various reasons. I know there are people who came here specifically because they wanted to see me. I met with some of them during lunchtime. So it's easier if we do it more personalized. When we do personalized, I find it Q&A is more effective because that answers your question, and it also touches on stuff that I didn't know affected both of you. So I will dive in real quick. So the first thing I want to talk about, I will talk about immigration checkpoints. And typically, there are four, not immigration, checkpoints generally, but mostly checkpoint as they affect to immigration. There are four types of checkpoints that you will find. One of them is the US border. The second checkpoint is usually going to be TSA. This is at the airport. And the third is the drug checkpoints, especially at the border. They always have random drug checkpoints. And of course, we have the DUI checkpoints. Every state, sometime, especially when there are holidays like St. Patrick's, when people are really drinking, there will be random checks during that time for DUIs. But for today's purpose, I'm going to mostly talk about the US border checkpoints, and I'm also going to do about TSA. Generally, as far as in America, we have the Fourth Amendment. And the Fourth Amendment is what protects us from unreasonable searches and unreasonable stops. And the Fourth Amendment of the Constitution says the right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, effects, and against unreasonable searches and seizures that shall not be violated, and no warrant shall issue but upon probable cause, supported by oath of affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the person or things to be seized. Okay? So what that means is, because a lot of immigration, when they encounter you, they'll try to trick you that they have a warrant. Warrants are required, and before any judge can issue a warrant, there has to be a reasonable, probable cause on why they're issuing a warrant. So let's talk about, despite what the Fourth Amendment is, some of these checkpoints, like the US border checkpoints, the TSA checkpoint, the drug, and the alcohol, they don't need a warrant or probable cause on those. So what happens is at the border, because this is where in the last, let me say from around August of last year to current, I have handled 11 immigration cases in removal proceedings, all related to the US border checkpoint. This has mostly been our CDL drivers and our truck drivers, because a lot of them have been affected. I've also had 2 of them who were caught as collateral damage close to the border. So I want to talk about this because you all need to know what is this US border checkpoint. What most people don't know is that roughly 2/3, okay? 2/3 of the United States population lives within a 100-mile zone. So border protection, there's been a lot of litigation, a lot of lawsuits back and forth, and the US Supreme Court generally has said border protection or these US border checkpoints can happen anywhere within 100 miles radius from the border. And 100 miles is a huge, huge radius. If you look, Connecticut, Delaware, Florida, Hawaii, Maine, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, New Jersey, New York, Rhode Island, and Vermont. All those states I've mentioned, they lie entirely or almost entirely within 100 miles radius of the border. A lot of people come from Kenya or they move and they don't check where they are moving. My dear, if you are not in good immigration status, avoid living in a state or anywhere within that 100-mile radius because you're putting yourself at risk. And that's what most people don't know. I know there are a lot of Kenyan in those states. Let me repeat those states again because if you're watching live, you need to be careful living around these places, especially if your immigration status is not good. Connecticut, Delaware, Florida, Hawaii, Maine, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, New Jersey, New York, Rhode Island, and Vermont. Those states lie entirely or almost entirely within 100 miles radius. So those places are subject to US border protection, and they can check anytime, anywhere, and they don't need a probable cause or a warrant because per the US Constitution, the border protection 100 miles, immigration is allowed to survey those areas. Then I'm going to talk about metropolitan. Metropolitan is like the large cities, you know, like Atlanta is a metropolitan. We have some metropolitan areas, okay, which also fall within 100 miles of radius. Like, for example, we have New York City, Los Angeles, Chicago, Houston, Philadelphia, Phoenix, San Antonio, San Diego, and San Jose. If you live in those specific cities, you're within 100-mile radius where where immigration can do random border checks, and they don't need a warrant or probable cause to stop and search you. Okay? However, there are some few things we need to. Just because they can search doesn't mean they can search just anyhow. Within those borders, there's no uniform protocol. The only thing the court system has said is they can set those as long as you're within 100 immigration card. But there's no set protocol about what immigration can or cannot do. And this is where we find a lot of violations, especially if you encounter some of these immigration officers you've been seeing wearing masks, hiding their identity, because there's no set protocol. They can do that. Is it legal? The court hasn't decided on that. That's why they continue to do that, and they can do it. However, these stops should only consist of a brief and limited inquiry into your residence or immigration status, or for you to identify yourself. They shouldn't keep you for like hours. It should be a quick one, okay? And even if they stop you, neither the vehicle nor its occupant should be searched without probable cause or warrant. This is where the Fourth Amendment of the Constitution comes and protects you. They can ask you, but they can't ask you, can we check the vehicle? Can we see your pocket? Can we see what's in your handbag? Can we see your wallet? They can't do that, okay? And the other thing we need to understand is, now you've been stopped. Just because they can, what are the do's and don'ts that you can follow? So you're not required to answer the agent's question. And normally those questions starts with, are you a United States citizen? You don't have to answer that question. Okay? You don't have to answer that question. But there are caveats to it. So the CBP agents at checkpoints are only allowed to ask motorists basic questions about citizenship, identity, your travel itinerary, like where you're going, where you're coming, but they cannot detain you or search your vehicle without probable cause. Your refusal to answer a question will not provide probable cause to allow for search or detention. So if you, let's say for example, you refuse to answer, just because you've refused to answer, that doesn't give them a probable cause or a reason to search your wallet or to search your handbag to try and retrieve your identity document. They can't do that. Or to search your pocket to search your identity. Or maybe to ask for to check your vehicle so that they can retrieve your insurance to see your driver's license or anything. They can't do that. But keep in mind, even though you are not legally required to answer the question they ask you, the agents will not allow you to proceed until they are satisfied that the occupants of the vehicle traveling through the checkpoint are legally present in the US. So that is why if you've been watching the news, you've been seeing video on TikTok and all these, you refuse, you stand your ground, they have cameras. They will, if with official identification, they will be able to check on you. So this is why even an attorney can't tell you what to do, what not to do. But bottom line is, they will find a way to identify you. They will run your license plate to see who the vehicle is registered. Once they find out the name of the vehicle, because that's public info, they will run that name to see if you're legal or not. Of course, at that time, if they determine you're not legal, that is the time now they will detain you for removal proceeding. So as to the question that people ask, should I identify or not? That's your own discretion, okay? You've seen people stand their ground, but one way or another, they will find a way to identify you. They are not going to let you go off easily out of that checkpoint until they've identified who you are and what your immigration status is. So then there are a few things. If you're a US citizen, of course, you're not required to carry your citizenship, your proof of citizenship. The only time you're required to carry your proof of citizenship is if you're traveling internationally. And I'll get back to that because there's been a lot of miscommunication about the issue of, oh, if I travel to Kenya with a Kenyan passport or two passport, I'm not going to be back to be able to come back. I will answer that in a minute. But as a US citizen, the only time you're required to carry proof that you're a US citizen is when you're going out of the country. If you're not, as long as you're in the US, you are not required to do that. However, for non-citizen, and I say non-citizen, meaning even if you're a green card holder, this also applies to green card, whether you're legal, illegal, you have a green card, as long as you're not a US citizen. So this is anybody who's a non-citizen, and you're at the age of 18 years and above. You are required to carry your immigration document at all times. That's what most people don't know. Even green card holder, the rule and the law is, as long as you're not a US citizen, you have to carry your green card with you at all times. If you're applying for immigration status, always have a copy, a soft copy somewhere of the receipts showing you filed or you have a pending application. If you're an asylum holder, you have a pending asylum. Always carry that proof to show that you have a pending asylum. That will save you, in some cases, a lot of headache and detention. Because remember, technically, I told you, out of the 11 cases that I've handled since August for border issues with the people being stopped at the border, 8 of them had pending asylum cases, and they were put through removal proceedings. The misconception is this, that if you apply for asylum or if you apply for a green card, you are legal. No, you are not. Because you don't know, until your application has been approved, just because you've applied for something doesn't mean you have that status. Just because you applied for asylum, yes, a lot of people apply asylum, and I'll talk about asylum because right now asylum is one of the riskiest options right now to file. You can apply for asylum, but up until your asylum has been approved, which sometimes takes years, you still don't have asylum status, you still don't have status in the US. You are technically illegal. And they've been arresting them even when they have pending asylum application. The positive side on that is because they all had, out of at least the 8 of them that all had asylum, pending asylum application, I was able to get them, all 8 out on bond, and their bond was minimum. Their bond range between $3,500 to $5,000. So, but also because they also did not have any criminal history. So if you have a pending asylum, always carry your asylum, but also know with this environment, avoid risky moves, because even if you have a pending asylum, you can still be put under removal proceedings. And let me touch base about asylum because this is very, very key and very, very important. The new rule under Trump, before you used to apply for asylum, after 6 months, your asylum case hasn't been decided, you apply for a work permit, and you're able to work. I still have cases from 2015 that we recently got called for interview. We're talking about 2015. How many years are those? 11, 12 years. That's how long asylum application take. So during that time, of course, it allows you to work legally, continue working, but some of these asylum cases are not strong cases. So I always tell people, even if you apply for asylum, always look for other alternatives that are more better, stronger, and safer than asylum. Asylum will give you the cushion you need to start you off, but down the line, you need to think of a plan B. And your plan B needs to be better than an asylum application. I think by that, I'm just gonna leave it at that. Most of you already know what I mean. The other thing is right now under Trump, that loophole has been closed. As soon as we file for that asylum, within 3 months, within 1 to 3 months, we're being called for an interview. any application that we filed as of last year, around what? Around June, July to currently, you apply for asylum within 2-3 months, you're called for an interview. That means you are not going to be able, if your asylum doesn't get approved, you're not going to be able to get that work permit. But that's not even the biggest issue. For all asylum cases, the rule is, if your asylum case is denied because you're claiming that you're in fear of going to your country, to protect you, the rule is every asylum case that's denied by USCIS, they get an automatic, it's not like an appeal, but a second look. They have to be referred to removal proceeding for the judge to take a look at that case again. Over 80% of the time, the judge will agree with USCIS decision for denial. So what that means is, once your asylum case has been denied by USCIS, you will end up in removal proceedings. The problem that I've encountered, as I said, is most people, once they file that asylum, they get excited about the work permit, they forget about a plan B, and most probably, the biggest mistake they did, they didn't choose an attorney for the asylum. They went to somebody who they pay, does the same application, has the same different kind of samples, statement, just edits it a little bit, put your name, changes some dates, and then uses them. So you end up in more problem, because even the asylum that you feel you applied, even an attorney cannot rescue it because it wasn't done properly in the first place. And once in that position, then another issue comes up. Did you file what we call a frivolous claim of asylum, a bogus asylum, and your removal proceeding? At that time, even most attorneys may not help to salvage you, because once that application goes to USCIS, once they deny, they transfer your file to the immigration judge. That's why I said most of them, it's hard to reverse them, because the judge is looking at the same bogus statement asylum. Even if an attorney comes, we can do a few updates. But if we change the whole statement drastically, that's a red flag, and that's a reason for judge to say the first claim was frivolous. Because now, why are you changing it at this time? You're changing it because you have an attorney and because the first one was bogus. So you end up in trouble. Or the judge will be questioning, between that statement you submitted and this statement you're submitting here, which one is the truth? You are lying on one of them. And as you know, giving frivolous claim to immigration subjects you to permanent bar. That means you can never get any benefit. So with those asylum that they file, it becomes difficult to change them at that time. So when your new people come and they want to file this asylum, please advise them to seek an attorney. I see some of these applications, they were submitted even bare minimum with no evidence. They even forgot to edit some names. Their names are mixed up because they use somebody who's not a professional, somebody who's making money, telling them you don't need to pay an attorney, I can do this for you. You don't have to pay an attorney, but this is your life you're gambling with. And if you're going to gamble with it, you better gamble it right and safe. Otherwise, it beats the purpose of trying to gamble with it. So before you tell people right now, as they famously say, wajipatiane, stop first, think about the risk, because right now it's very, very risky. There are other ways you can do. I've seen people stay in this country, and for the record, I'm not encouraging anybody to hide or to be illegal, but truth be told, I've seen people live in this country over 20, 30 years without immigration status. As long as they played it safe, avoid risky stuff. So ask yourself, before I file this asylum, is this a risk I want to take? Is my case strong enough that it gives me at least an audience, that if I hire an attorney, we can work on it, make it look better, make it look what is a winnable case before. So warn people, because with the 3 months, it's risky. Now, I'll go back to my representation. Let me talk about law enforcement and police identification, because that is one of the things that we're encountering here in Georgia, here in Atlanta, Marietta, Acworth, Kennesaw. If you're in a lot of these WhatsApp groups for Georgia, you've seen people say, hey, I've seen immigration somewhere. I've seen these, or the cops, you've seen the new law whereby Marietta, city of Marietta, have signed a contract with ICE. They're getting funded that they will work with ICE. Now, you'll get some police officers who are very resilient. The police officer will stop you for a regular traffic stop, and they'll try to ask you for immigration status. That is beyond their work. That is beyond their scope. A police officer, they can ask you because they want to be zealous, but it's beyond their job. You're not required to answer your immigration status to a police officer. Remember, I talked about enforcement. Enforcement, US border, that is where we have ICE. ICE, that is their job. Their sole purpose and job is to look at people immigration status and deport people or hold them. So them, they can do that. They can ask you about your citizenship. And in most of the time, as I said, you may be required to identify yourself. But but police officer should not ask you about your immigration status. And if they ask you, you don't have to answer them. Unless now they decided they want to hold you and call ICE on you. At that time, if an ICE officer comes, they have the right to ask you about that. But if you encounter a police officer at that time, they ask you, you don't have to. Ask them, why did you stop them? Of course, most police officers will come ask you, do you know why I stopped you? Never answer that question. Because you may think you're overspeeding, but maybe they didn't even notice you're overspeeding. Maybe you had a backlight that is broken, and that's what they were calling you about. They were just going to give you a warning. And you've just given them another mistake that you know yourself. You've confessed to another mistake that that officer didn't know about. So now you've added another mistake. So when they come ask you, do you know why I stopped you? Tell them no. Why did you stop me? Let them tell you why they stopped you. At that time, it's about whatever the reason. Ask them, do I get a ticket? If it's a ticket, let them write your ticket and go. If they decide they're not going to release you because they want ICE or they want to call ICE, you need to ask that officer, am I free to leave? Because at that time, the police officer cannot just keep you there to wait for ICE. They can buy their own time other tactic way, but they're not going to keep you there because you've refused to identify, so that they wait for that ICE officer or to make a call for that ICE officer to come and ask you. At that time, you need to ask them, am I free to leave or am I being arrested? If they are not arresting you, then you need to tell them, can I leave? Am I free to leave? If they tell you no, you can't leave, then you need to ask why. If they tell you at that time they're waiting for ICE, at that time they violated your rule. Either way, you can sue them. And most smart officers are not going to do that. Because at that time, technically, they are detaining you. They are arresting you. Because you're not free to leave. They can either write your ticket and leave you. But if they're going to hold you there while they wait for ICE, they can't do that. So always ask if you're free. And if you trigger some of these words I'm saying, they have been trained to know this is a person who knows their right. They're going to let you go. They may call an officer, an ICE agent to follow you, but they're not going to detain you there on the spot while they wait for them. Because at that time, they already know you know what's your right, and they have to determine if they're arresting you or not. Because if they're not arresting you, they can't keep you there to wait for that officer to come. So always know your rights when you're stopped by immigration officers and when you're stopped by the police. Because we have a lot of police enforcement going on and a lot of it is illegal, they can do it. Now, what are the do's and don'ts of a checkpoint? It's bad. You've been stopped by ICE. You realize you're out of status. You do realize that you're going to be detained. Please don't flee a checkpoint. Because at that time, not only have you made your case worse, because they're going to run after you. So sometimes it's better, talk to them, especially if you have pending stuff. Because even if you have pending stuff, like the cases I've told you, they had asylum. Of course, they call me freaking out, their family freaking out. But I'm like, unfortunately, they can't because that person is illegal even though they have a pending application. But don't worry about it. Let them be checked in. And within a few days, most of them within 1-2 weeks, we're able to get them out on bond. Okay? So the second thing is this. Don't lie about your immigration status. One of the biggest major issues I have is a person who lied at the border patrol that they were born in some state, which was not the truth. We have tried to fight that, and it's so difficult to lie, especially when you lie to immigration officers. Some of them have recordings. They've already caught you. I remember, as I said, filing frivolous claim, lying, and false claim of citizenship bars you permanently. Meaning, those are things that are very, very hard even for any attorney to beat. We can beat some of these false claim citizenship depending on when you are, because prior to 2012, the forms used to say, are you a national? Which the case has gone on and it has been decided that that national is ambiguous. So unless we talk about those old cases when people were asking about, are you a national? And you feel yes. Nowadays, it's very, very specific. Are you a US citizen? So there's no ambiguity on it. And those are some of the difficult cases. We call them the unforgivable mistakes of immigration. The other thing is don't give fake documents, okay? These people check. Whatever document you give them, they will cross-check to make sure. Don't think that you're just going to show them a fake ID or a fake green card and they'll be like, oh, these are citizens, and they won't cross-check what you're giving them. Remember, they even have facial recognition. They can tell who you are. So don't give fake documents. So if you approach on the street or in public place, you do not have to answer agents' questions or provide identification. Again, as I said, but this is a call you have to make. Either way, they will make sure they verify you in other ways without your ID, like facial recognition. Then also, the other reason I say this is because we don't know, there have been fake agents, fake immigration agents, so you always don't want to. You want to make sure they are. And then also ask if you're free to go. If you're not free to go, ask if you're under arrest, and you have the right, at that time, if they tell you under arrest, you have the right to remain silent. I always say, please keep quiet. Why do I say please keep quiet? Some of this stuff, they're stuff that we can fix, like an attorney can fix. But the other stuff that we can fix, I'll give you a good example. A lot of B1, B2 visitors, let me say over 90% of them, B1, B2 visitors, they lie at the embassy. There's this notion that if you say you're married at the embassy, it helps your case of B1, B2. So a lot of B1, B2 visas, and if you are one of them, you'll tell me if it's true or not, or you can tell if it's true or not. They lie, they're married, and they're not married. And then they come to America, they want to file their paperwork. They even forgot, walisema wako married kwa embassy. Or they'll assume, you know what, it was a come we stay married. Hata sikuwa nimemarry. So no, Kenya, Sarah, you know that time they're talking to me, Sarah, si wewe unajua tu zile marriage za home, bibi anakuja tunakaa. I'm like, no. The fact that you said it's married and they recognize you're married, whether it was a come we stay, whether it was true or it was not true, you have a marriage and you have to dissolve that marriage. If you don't have to dissolve, there are other ways, creative way we can. But bottom line is this. If you said you're married, please don't forget about that marriage. Right now, that is the number one reason why green cards, good marriage-based green cards, strong marriage-based green cards are being denied. Because now they're checking on what you wrote on your DS-260 when you came to America. They're going back, they're checking what you said. Mwingine ananiambia, yes, I said niliandika hapo niko married, but venye nilienda hata kuniuliza. But you did an application. The application asks you if you're married. They have it on record that you said you're married. The worst part ni wenye wananiambia, mimi Sarah hata sikumbuki. At that moment nilikuwa tunajaza hapo online kwa cyber. Hata sikumbuki niliandika jina gani. Mimi nilichukua tu jina nikaandika. Now we have to go the long route because I have to do a FOIA request to get your records at the embassy to see which name uliandika huko so that we can divorce this wife. Or to figure out what to do. Please, if you know you said you're married at the embassy, that is a very, very, very vital information you have to tell your attorney. I've done hundreds of these applications from our people. I've come up with creative ways in those that we can divorce, especially if you're lucky. You came before 2016, or you applied before 2016, because 2016, the Kenyan law changed, whereby even come-with-stay marriages are recognized in Kenya, but you have to register them. If you don't register them, they come null and void. We've used such arguments, they've worked. The only thing is, I'm not an expert. I know what the law is because I'm from Kenyan origin, but I can't argue about the Kenyan law. So I've come up with creative ways where I'm able to work with some Kenyan lawyers to write briefs, and then I add my own legal reasoning about what the American law, about when you have a marriage impediment, what happens to that. In those that we are able to divorce them legally, we can divorce them, and we ask the judge to validate your marriage. Meaning, we come up front, we tell the judge, you got married to somebody else, thinking your marriage in Kenya was null and void or was over, but it wasn't. So you're asking the judge now, after divorcing you to that person, to recognize that you're currently married to XYZ, and that has worked with immigration. So if you know you said you're married, tafadhali, please. And the other thing, don't file by yourself. Always get an attorney. And if you're going to be dealing with that issue, get an attorney who has done several of those, who's experienced, who knows how to navigate about those, because that's what it is in all these, is an issue of navigating around it. So make sure, if you said you're married, you let your attorney know. Do not attempt to file thinking you're married just because it was a come-stay, hakukuwa na marriage certificate. It's not going to land you in trouble. A lot of people have ended up in removal proceedings because of that. I remember, as I'm emphasizing, if you lie on your application, it bars you permanently. So you don't want to be bad of an issue that you could have easily talked to an attorney, figured a way out to resolve it, or navigate around it. And then, as I said, this is just a repetition. It is illegal for law enforcement, these are the police officers, to perform any stop such as detentions or deportation based on your race, national origin, religion, sex, and ethnicity. So if they stop you and they're like, oh, we notice you have an accent, that's why I'm asking. Already right there, they violated your right. They shouldn't be judging you based on your accent or based on your race, okay? So you need to ask them why they're doing that. Are they arresting you? Is it illegal to have an accent? If they say no, then they're like, is there any other reason why you're detaining me? No. Am I free to go? You need to advocate yourself, but also advocate for yourself respectively. That also plays a role. It doesn't mean you are narrowing yourself. It just, sometimes how you interact with people matters. Even that officer maybe came with a very aggressive, realizing you're answering slow, calmly, respectfully. They feel ashamed sometimes and they'll back off. So you don't have to be rude when answering this. Just be calm even when you're asking if you're free to go. And they need to see you're composed, you know what you're doing. And that's what a lot of law enforcement don't like. Law enforcement officers don't like people who know their right, people who are composed, people who are not provoking them, because you see they're looking for you to provoke you so that you overreact, and it adds on their probable cause. But when you're not giving them that reason, they really, really don't like that. For TSA, real quick, as you know, TSA is part of the Department of Homeland Security. DHS, which is the Department of Homeland Security, usually USCIS, ICE, Border Patrol, and TSA. Those four compose of the what we call the DHS department, Domestic Homeland Security. So, and TSAR, this is the other people who are allowed, just like the US Border Patrol. These are the only people who are allowed to search you without any probable cause. As long as you're passing through security or at the border, and there's the TSA, they can check you without any. They can even tell you, can we see that bag? What is in that bag? They are allowed to do that at that time. They are the only agency who can do that. And that is, as we know, is because they are trying to protect pretty much the security. Especially after 9/11, they were given those powers to do that. I've already talked about drug checkpoints and DUI checkpoints. Those are the random, that they will search you without probable cause, pretty much, because every now and then, every state will have a day when they will do random DUIs or random drug tests at that time. But even with them, they're not going to ask you if it's being conducted by police officers or law enforcement. That's all they can do. Stop you, blow, determine if you're drunk or not. If you're not, let you go. Same thing with drug. Most of them will have, they will have dogs. You'll be stopped. The dog will walk around your vehicle, check. If nothing, they'll ask you, do you have any drug or anything? And they'll let you go. So those are the 4 that you'll encounter that mostly they're not going to need probable cause. So, again, if you're out of state, as I said, please don't commit a crime. Stay away from criminal, because as soon as you get arrested for a criminal offense, you go to jail, they check you. They are required. This system are interconnected nowadays, even the KRA, not the KRA, what do you call it? IRS, all these systems nowadays are connected. So as long as the police officer checks you in, it will alert them that you're out of status. If you're out of status, they will notify immigration and they'll put a hold on your case. Meaning, even if you bond out from the criminal detention center, you're going to be picked up by ICE. So avoid criminal cases at all times. I say this, if you encounter, and I say this especially with our young people, they go to a club, they get drunk, they get into fights with, let's say, security guys or other fellow members, police come in, collateral damage. So advise even our young people, if you're not in good immigration status, sometimes it's okay to walk away even from fights that you really think you should be fighting, because you don't know what will be the outcome of it. So I say that because a lot of our young people fighting among themselves or fighting other people is what has been landing a lot of our young people into jail, and then they have the alert from immigration and they end up in removal proceedings. Then start saving for an exit plan and bond money. Carry a document that shows you've been in the US for 2 years. This could save you what we call an expedited removal. As you all know, Trump wants people gone quick. So they've come with a rule that if you're arrested, or rather, well, not arrested, let me say if immigration picks you up or you're stopped by immigration and you haven't been in the country for more than 2 years, you are subject to the expedited removal, meaning you don't have to go through a judge. As long as they have a plane, they can pick you up, put you on a plane. And before even your family or your attorney knows, you're out. So to avoid these, because remember, these ICE officers, it's not their job they don't care pretty much. They're not going to put an effort to find out if you've been here for more than 2 years or not. It's upon you to prove it to them. So you've been here for more than 2 years. To avoid expedited removal, always carry something to show that you've been in this country for 2 years. What that does, it saves you from being put through expedited removal, and you're put through removal proceedings. That way you can go through a judge, and you get an opportunity to defend yourself and to hire an attorney to see what can be done. So always carry documentation to show. I know most of the people who are illegal, some of them don't have social security numbers, so of course they're not going to have bills or anything. I always say at that time, just carry something to show you've been in this country. It could be medical. Maybe ulikujanga one time, went to a hospital, and you have a medical bill with your name showing from 2 years ago you've been in this. That is also good enough. You just have to have something, maybe at least something to show that you are. It's going to save you from removal proceeding and buy you time from expedited removal, and instead put you through removal proceeding to get your day in court and to defend yourself. Do not carry your passport that has an expired visa on it that could be used against you. One of the things that we find where we've had issues, like during COVID time, they could not deport a lot of the people because most agencies, as you know, were closed. They can't get traveling documents from you. And so there was a lot of people who were let out. They were in removal proceeding, they were let out, and all they had to go is go report every yearly or every quarterly to immigration. Of course, they've started now picking up those people and deporting them. But don't carry something that you know is going to be used against you. One of the biggest issues, even after deportation order is issued, is to get your traveling documents. And our Kenyan government like to take their sweet time. So if you want to buy yourself time, please avoid carrying your passport. Because if you have that passport, that's all they need to send to the Kenyan government or talk to the airline to deport you, showing you have they may not have that passport, but they do have details with your passport. So avoid carrying that passport if possible. And I say this because I find that a lot of the people who don't have papers, they carry their passport as their form of identification. Avoid carrying passport, because passport is actually one of the key things that they need in order for them to deport you. So let's say now the immigration officers come to your house. What do? They have a tendency to come very, very early in the morning before you wake up. You will hear no. In this age, I've said, it doesn't matter whether you live in an apartment, whether it's a rental. Invest yourself in a ring bell that shows you a video, a notification of who's at your door before you open. Okay? Please do. That thing is going to cost you $50. Even if it's a lot of money, invest. It's the least you can do. Invest yourself in that ring. Know who's at your door before you go open. But just let's say they happen to come. Don't open the door. Okay? Even if they identify themselves, their eyes, do not open the door. Second, ask them if they have a warrant. If they have a warrant, ask them to slide it under your door. If there's no space big enough to slide it under your door, look for a window. Ask them to send it to a window. If they don't, ask them to take a picture. You can give them your number. You need to see that warrant before you open the door. Immigration warrants are hard to get. They are not like criminal warrants. Criminal warrants are easy to get. Immigration warrants are hard to get from a judge because you're entitled to go to court and defend yourself. So most of the time, over 95%, they're not going to have that warrant. So ask them to show you. They'll try to trick you that they have a warrant. When they send you that warrant, it has to be from a judge. If it says from a supervisor, a director from the USCIS or ICE, that is not a valid warrant. A warrant is only signed by a judge. That's the only valid warrant. That's why I say, ask them for a warrant. If you're not sure about the warrant, send it to someone or to your attorney, let them review and tell you if it's a valid warrant or not. If they have a valid warrant, that time you're required to open. But if they don't, which over 95% they're not going to have a valid warrant, then you don't have to open the door for them. Whether you're illegal or not, it doesn't matter. Second, don't sign anything without talking to an attorney. Recently, they've been using a lot of tactics, telling you, hey, sign here. If you sign here, we'll let you go, and you'll have your day in court. And you don't even know what you're doing. I've seen people sign off their rights like a joke through signing what they don't. So do not sign anything. Even if you don't sign anything, even if you've been detained, all they're going to write there under your signature, refuse to sign. And there's nothing wrong by writing refuse to sign. You can refuse, it's your right. You don't have to sign it. And then get an attorney immediately to challenge your removal proceeding and bond hearings. The one thing I need you to understand, removal proceedings and bond hearings are totally two different things. Most of the times, our judges will do them together, others will do them separately. I like mine when they're done separately, especially when we don't have a lot of defenses on the removal proceedings. I want you to come out fast, do a bond hearing quick, come out fast, and then we can worry about the removal proceedings. Because when you are not detained, your case goes slow. If you are detained, your case goes fast. That's why I say it's very, very important after you're arrested to get an attorney to see what can be done. And also because we want to avoid you talking too much or making your case worse to a point where we can't reverse it. Then if you're raided and have children, let the officer know.
Okay? This is because you want some time, depending on some officers. If you get lenient officers, some of them, especially if your kids are US citizen, you want to tell them, hey, I have young kids, minor kids. Some officers will feel sorry for you, and they'll give you a notice to appear and not detain you. Or they'll detain you, they'll go process you, and they'll let you out of your own self-recognizance. Because those kids are some of the things that we normally use if we're doing for bond to show the judge, hey, look, this person have young kids, they need their parents, can you let them out? Or maybe the dad is the breadwinner, that kind of a thing. So it's always good. But if your kids are also not illegal, your kids are illegal, I leave that to you, because if they pick up that child, they're also going to put them under removal proceedings with you. So make discretion. Which brings me to something else that I need to talk to right now. Always, you've had Trump took safe harbors. Around the borders, churches, hospitals, schools used to be safe harbors. When people cross the border and they see ICE coming, they would run, hide in churches, schools, or hospital. And as soon as they set foot there, the immigration officers would stop there. They can't go to those places. They would wait, of course, wait. After a while, they'll give up because their shift have to end. And even if they can't camp in one hospital waiting for a few people for 2-3 days. And a lot of those safe harbors will feed those immigrants until ICE clears off, and then you can go. That changed under Trump. We no longer have those safe harbors. Meaning, when you're dropping your kids at school, you've seen immigration officer come, arrest people. When you're at the hospital, people have been picked up at the hospital. People have been picked up even in churches, unfortunately. As I tell people, always have a plan B, especially if you have kids. Always have a point of contact, an emergency contact who, if you're arrested, you can call them. They can pick up your kids for you. Second, that emergency contact of yours, please talk to them. Pick up somebody you know, somebody you can trust. If you can trust them with your kids and your finances, you can trust enough to discuss about your immigration officer. The biggest problem when my clients are detained is getting documents, because your documents are all over. You don't even know. You're asked by your attorney, you're like, man, Sarah, lazima nikatafute yo. Ebu nipatie 2-3 days. No, you need to have your documents all aligned. If it's document to show your 2-year history here, anything you have, talk to that point of contact, your emergency contact. This is the person who will be the liaison between me and you at the detention, who will be looking for documents for you. Tell them exactly where your documents are. That will speed up your case, and that will help with doing your bond application. So always have that plan B there. Then let me talk a little bit about removal issues, because that's what we're talking about. I want to talk about public charge. What is public charge? Under Trump administration, when Trump, during his first term, he introduced this public charge, there are now questions on the 485, the green card application that we have to answer about public charge. They want to know, are you likely to ask for government aid? They're looking at your, they're looking at your education. Are you a kind of person, if you got a green card, you can wake up, find a job in good, healthy? But most importantly, public charge is, are they looking, are you asking for fee waivers? I've seen people ask for fee waivers, they're like, man, Sarah, Sina, can we ask? It's okay, you can ask, but also that goes to show you're already a public charge, because already you're asking for fee waiver, you can pay, and you're asking for government help. Food stamps, okay? But these are food stamps as it relates to you who doesn't have immigration status, okay? Your kids who are US citizen, they are entitled to that food stamp if you need it. But yourself, if you have, it also goes towards to show your public charge, okay? So if you're going to apply for some of these benefits, think twice, unless you really, really need them, especially if you're going to apply, because we have to disclose those information. If you've applied for food stamp, if you've applied for Medicaid or medical help, okay, and housing assistant. Those are some of the things that anytime they're now seeing them on your application, that you're already applying for them, goes to show you a public charge. And that is one of the reasons why they will deny your green card application. And then there's something we call crimes of moral turpitude. This is another issue that also brings problems. If you've been convicted of 2 or more, and I'll give example of what crimes of moral turpitude are. And then, again, our young people. And I say this to our young people because some of this stuff, mostly, to tell you the truth, we see them with our young people. They come here, they're excited, they encounter schoolmates, and they start getting involved in petty shoplifting stuff and all that. If you pick up a crime within 5 years of admission that carries a maximum sentence of 1 year or more, you're removable automatically. So avoid crimes, especially during the first 5 years after you land, because those will buy you from getting a lot of immigration benefit. So advise our young people to avoid these, because that's when they come and they're very excited and they start doing stupid things that they would do in Kenya and get away, only realize here they are big issues. So some of the examples of these crimes of moral turpitudes are any crime against a person with intent to harm. This is where you'll see domestic violence, all this. If you intend to harm somebody, hit somebody, kill somebody, use a weapon, those are crimes of moral turpitude. Any crime involving fraud or evil intent or recklessness, statutorily rape, theft, forgery, spousal, or child abuse. Please, domestic violence, one of the biggest issues that as Africans, I say Africans because it's in our African community, it doesn't matter which country you're from, we have an issue for spousal abuse. And it applies both ways, women and men, okay? It's not a one gender. I've seen it. Women getting violent, thinking the system is gonna protect them, they hit, then they leave a little scratch or something, or somebody is recording you, you end up. Same thing, men are taught, stand up. And they do it, and it lands in problem. Let's avoid those. And let's tell our young people when they come, avoid those. Then we have 2 or more crimes for which aggregated sentence was 5 years or more. On the lucky side, we don't get this a lot for us Africans, unless, well, I'm not going to say. But for us Kenyans, we don't have a lot of these. This, we're talking about serious crimes, you know? Easy defrauding people, defrauding the government, the old people. Serious crimes, robbing with a gun. We don't have a lot of us. As our biggest problem is DUIs and domestic violence. That is our biggest issue for us Kenyans. But that's also one of the things. Then if violating any controlled substance. I know if you go to California, weed is legal, but if you cross another state, it may not be. But more importantly, even if in that state it's legal, for immigration purposes, they still have not. Remember, when it comes to something like weed, marijuana is state-based. The federal government has just kept quiet. Doesn't mean it's legal for federal. But they've said, hey, you know what? The states will control themselves. States want to make it legal in their state, that's fine. Let them make it legal. But that's why when you try to cross with that weed, even if you bought it legally in California, you try to cross with it at the airport to come to Georgia, you are going to get arrested, right? Because federally, it's not acknowledged. So for immigration purposes, it's not. Even if in that state, it is legal. When it comes to immigration, remember immigration will fall under federal, it is not. So violating any controlled substance will land you in trouble, whether it's legal in that state or not. And then we have habitual drunkenness. Habitual drunkenness counts as 2 violations of a drinking offense. Why do I say I'm calling it a drinking offense? Because, as you know, as lawyers, we're there to, everybody deserves a defense. If you come to me, it's your first time. I don't do criminal defense, but when I used to, and I know most attorneys do it, if you come to me, maybe it's a first DWI, we may negotiate with the prosecutor and change that crime from a DUI to maybe a public intoxication or a public nuisance. But in real sense, on the charging document, it shows that you are arrested for for alcohol. And you're going to get a lesser charge for that crime. But now you pick up a second. If you pick up a second, it doesn't matter what we call it. The fact that your first one that we reduce is already a drinking, and you've picked up a second drinking offense, you get 2 drinking offense. Whether it's PAI, whether it's driving, you are called what we call habitual drunkard for immigration, and that makes you deportable. Then, false testimony under oath, This is whereby you go to court, you give, it is an offense. Or I've seen people apply for benefits, lie on their benefits. That is an offense and is going to make you deportable. Then we have illegal gambling, it's self-explanatory, prostitution, smuggling, polygamy. Remember what I said, that marriage that you said you are and then you got married again here? Whether it's true or not, my dear, that is polygamy. And that is an offense that will make you deportable. So as I said, don't forget about that marriage, fake or not. Please disclose it to your attorney, okay? Otherwise, it's an offense for immigration and federally because that is polygamy. You're married to two people at the same time. Adultery, cheating, of course, you know your adultery. It is. Most people don't think it is. But if your spouse manages to go sue you successfully, and even if they don't sue you, they do a divorce. Remember I told you I specialize in immigration, family law, and personal injury. When they do a divorce, and they insist that on the divorce, they don't want it to be a default. They want it to say, and they want to show the judge, because they want the judge to say, I'm divorcing this person because they cheated on me. And the judge will write there, the grounds for divorce is adultery. That, when the immigration officer sees it, and you get married to somebody else and you're trying, it's going to be an issue on your removal proceeding, okay? So let's avoid unnecessary headaches. And then lying to gain immigration benefits, failing to pay court-ordered child support or alimony payments. Do people know not pay child support? It is. And that is one of the reasons why you're not going to get your benefits. So make sure you pay your child support. If you're behind, contact me. If you enjoyed your taxes, I can help you get yourself in track by payment plan. Meaning, let's say you owe $30,000, we can talk to the Attorney General, see if you can be paying $200 in addition to your current. You just have to show that you're now back on step paying, okay? Even if you owe. Then incarceration for 180 days. So be very, very careful. When you take those plea deals and they put jail time for you, make sure that jail time doesn't go more than 6 months. Because if you're going to be incarcerated, detained for more than in jail, you plead for something more than 180 days, which is 6 months, that puts you in trouble. So anytime you have you have an issue with an immigration, always speak to an immigration attorney. And also tell your criminal defense attorney about your immigration status. Because the moment you tell them, they will know how to negotiate a plea deal for you, okay? And then the other thing is failing to complete any probation, parole, or suspended sentence. And terrorist act and persecution of anyone because of race, religion, national origin, political opinion, or social groups. I already talked about false claim. And then make sure you're also not voting. It doesn't matter what voting you're doing. A lot of the voting, even the ones that are state-based, you need to be a US citizen. Avoid voting. I've seen people vote not knowing that it's illegal to vote, and that is a crime. And then polygamy, prior marriages in Kenya, I can't even talk about that. I've emphasized on that because right now, that is our biggest #1 issues with a lot of immigration cases that I'm getting is these fake marriages or marriages they said. Even if they're not fake, those come with same marriages that you said you're in. They are an issue right now. And then let me talk about these, and then I'm going to talk about, do I still have time? Peter? Okay, let me talk. I'm gonna go quick. Okay. I feel like I've been talking too much, that's why. Because even in court by now, I've stepped down to let the other attorney challenge me a little bit, and nobody's challenging me. So I feel like I've been talking and talking and talking. So let me talk about these admission issues. And this comes when you do plea deals. Sometimes it's inevitable, collateral damage you end up. Those plea deals when you make, I want you to understand something that criminal attorney may not tell you because they really want to close your case. To them, as long as you didn't go to jail, to them is a win. But is it really a win to you? Even if you're a green card holder and you're going to get citizenship, I want you to remember this applies to anybody who's not a US citizen. Admission, even if there's no conviction, you plead no contest, you pay a fine. Or they tell you this and this, the way it says something. Remember, those things, for immigration purposes, whether you admit or not, immigration purposes looks, as long as something was done, it is a crime, even if you pleaded not guilty. The other thing is aggravated felony, permanently inadmissible. Anytime you have a charge that is an aggravated assault, an aggravated something like a DUI, try to talk to your attorney to avoid that aggravated part. There's a way they can do creative way. If it's a felony, instead of being an aggravated felony, it can just be a felony. Because anytime there's that aggravated, it's a red flag for immigration. And then basically, this is just general knowledge. 180 days, if you overstay 180 days, more than 1 year, you do realize if you leave the country, you have 3 years, you can come back. If you stayed more than 1 year, you have a 10-year bar. And those bars are difficult because even before you come back, you have to get a waiver. The reason I'm going to jump into this, I just threw this last minute. And the reason why I threw this last minute, we have a lot of family members. I get this question, Sarah, kunaka kanisa kangu, my sister alikufa akaacha watoto wake, mimi ndo nimekuwa nikiwalipia school fees, nimewaraise ni kama wangu, can I adopt them? Can I bring them? Unfortunately, it becomes difficult. First and foremost, any person who's being adopted, you must do so before they are 16 years. And then you must apply for their green card before they're 16 years. But the biggest issue, why those relatives and everything, is because the adoption has to be done under Hague Convention. Kenya, we are part of Hague Convention. And unfortunately, because we had, if you remember time yakina Pastor Dea, I don't know how many of you remember that name, Pastor Dea. There was a whole lot, they were selling kids, So Kenya banned international adoptions, or kids were being taken, mistreated. Kenya banned. Kenya does not allow any kid to be adopted to be taken out of the country. So that is where the problem comes in. That's why when I get that question, I'm like, no, unfortunately you can't, because Kenya banned that. There are other ways you can, but I would advise you not to be, because I've seen a lot of people, their money being stolen, well, not being stolen, wamedanganywa, wanafanya adoption, only to come and we tell them, you can't bring that kid. You can adopt a kid if you're in Kenya and bring them. But you see, that time you have to have changed your residency, meaning, uko Kenya una adopt kama local, and you have to stay there. Kenya has a way whereby if you're adopting as a couple, you can alternate your residency. And I've seen couples do that. Moja, unaenda 6 months unakaa. After 6 months, the other spouse comes in anakaa, because you're adopting 2 of you. Because remember, they just need to show. But at that time, we may change residency. You're adopting as a local, not to bring them. Because it's just like if you're in Kenya, you can adopt a kid. Then down the line, you decide, okay, I want to go to America. I'm going to upate green card. Does it mean mtoto mwenye uliadopt at that time when you're a Kenyan resident legally, you can't bring them? You can. I only say this because if you're trying to adopt while you're here, you're not going to be, because it has to be done under Hague Convention. But if you move to Kenya, live there for a duration of time, don't remember whether it's 2 or 3 years, you can adopt them. But you have to have established a residency. They will come inspect, see the house. There's a procedure. I don't know talk. But if you're adopting from here, it has to be under Hague Convention, and Kenya is not, it has closed all Hague Convention. But you can adopt if you're a resident of Kenya and move to Kenya. I'll leave it at that. And then, if not orphaned, must live with the petitioner for at least 2 years prior to application. And this is where you have to be in Kenya, live with those kids for 2 years permanently. One of the parents must be a US citizen, and the other must be legally present in the US. That's where you now do both. But this is under Hague, if you're doing under Hague. But for Kenya, because we are not under Hague, you will need to go establish. And this is why I said I've seen people alternate. 1 parent, 1 year, or 6 months, hivyo. As long as you establish miaka zenyu mbili permanently in Kenya, you have to be paying taxes. You'll be told what you have to do, because you have to show you are truly, not technically, truly relocated to Kenya and you're a resident of Kenya. And then if adopting parent is single, he or she must be at least 25 years or old. Okay? I threw in this cancellation of removal because I found myself in the recent few months using this defense a lot on my cases. And this is something that people don't know, but unfortunately, for this benefit to get it, you have to be in removal proceedings. You have to be in removal proceeding. Don't put yourself there. But if you happen to be detained, talk to me. There are two of them. I've seen people who are green card holders being detained, and they're trying to take their green card. So if you're a green card, and you've been a green card holder for 5 years, you know, there are people who picked up criminal history, you have a lot, you happen to be detained, there's a way we can get you out. But you have to show that you've been a green card holder for 5 years, and you have lived continually in the US for 7 years, and you have no aggravated felony. So avoid aggravated felony. Remember I said that aggravated, you see that word aggravated, that's why I said you can have a felony, but if you have a good criminal defense, it can be changed to something. That aggravated is the trigger word. If it's just a felony, we can work with it. When it becomes aggravated, that's why as long as you don't have. So a lot of the green card holders that you see being arrested, mostly it's either something fraud they've done, or they have aggravated felonies. And that is what will land them in removal proceeding, them going after their green card. And then for those who are non-LPR, meaning legal permanent residents, you can still benefit. The only thing is the requirement is a little bit different, because you must have stayed in the country for more than 10 years. Physical, you must. Whether legal or illegal, it doesn't matter. The fact that you stayed in the United States for 10 years, we can try to do a cancellation of removal. Then you have to have good moral character and no criminal convictions. I'm talking about people who happen to be caught. That's why I say, I've seen people stay in this country over 20, 30 years, no criminal history. And then one day they just happen to be collateral damage or wameshikwa na immigration. Normally, if you're among those people, as long as you've been here for more than 10 years, na hauna criminal history, we may be able to get you and actually get your green card when you're on removal proceedings. And then you have to have no security risks, meaning no terrorist things, anything. Removal would constitute exceptional and extremely unusual hardship on spouse, parents, or child who's a US citizen or a green card holder. So especially those who have kids, or you are married to a spouse, your spouse is a green card, we can be able to get you out. I'm gonna skip about this VAWA. I think you guys have heard about it. The only thing I want you guys to remember about, because I want to have a Q&A, I also feel like I've been talking a lot. About VAWA. The VAWA applies to both men and women, okay? It applies to both men and women. So even if wewe ni mwanaume, usiogope kuja kuniongelesha. Remember, we have what we call an attorney-client privilege. I cannot discuss your case with anybody else or talk about it. So talk to me. You may not be able to talk to your friends kuambia manze bibi yangu ananichapanga. But remember, it doesn't have to be physical. That's what I wanted to talk to you. It doesn't have to be physical. Somebody threatening you that nitakuitia immigration, that is abuse. They shouldn't use that against you. We can file for you. Somebody sending you abusive. Akwambia, hata sijui nilikuwa, niangalia venye sura yako ni mbaya. Wewe hata nilikuwa out of nilikusikia. That was abuse. That's abuse. Okay, it doesn't have to be physical. But you will need to have evidence for it. So also before mtumiane message, remember anything you send in written can't be used against you. But if uko na hiyo, men or women, talk to me. Let me evaluate kenye uko nayo nikwambie if it's good, we can attempt or not. I've seen good candidates. Unaona mtu anakutukana, unapata stress hata huwezi lala the whole night. That is abuse. Okay? That is abuse. Talk to me about it. Okay? That is abuse. It doesn't have to be physical. I talked about the cancellation on this VAWA because sometimes I get people wananiambia Sara nimefika mwisho. Bwana yangu anani stress. Ama bibi yangu haki ya Mungu bibi Sara anani stress. Nikiingia tu hivi kwa nyumba nimetoka job. Makelele. That is abuse. Okay? Talk to me. That's all I'm going to say because of time. But let me just go. Relationship to the abuser, they have to be a US citizen or green card holder. Okay? The abuse must have happened. Uku. And then you must, continuous physical presence, 3 years. Lazima ukuwe hapa 3 years in the country. And then you nishaongea battery, and then good moral character. Remember, avoid criminal. This will save you a lot. You have that, and then you just have to show a few stuff. I want to talk about something I forgot to put there real quick. There's another one called U visa. Remember, nimesema ya vawa lazima spouse wako akue US citizen. I'm a green card holder. Kuna bottle water? Hata nasikia nimehoxa. They have to be. Kuna U visa. This is another option. These people don't. I'm telling you, a lot of our Kenyans and Africans don't know about a U visa. U visa is you have to be a victim of a crime. It doesn't matter what it is. Let's say ulikuwa job, kulikuwa na fight, ama kulikuwa na shooting, and you are present. Wakakuja wakaitisha witness list. You are among the witness. As long as you are assisting with the case, you're assisting the government, you can qualify. The other reason why I want to talk about U visa, thank you so much, Peter. The other reason I want to talk about U visa, we have boyfriend-girlfriend situation. You have to, for your VAWA, you have to have been married to that person. Let's say you're not married. You're in a girlfriend-boyfriend situation. This is where U visa also you can qualify. It's similar to like the VAWA, if you're not married. The only problem, I don't want to say it's a problem or not, you have to be cooperating with the government. And I know with a lot of our domestic violence issues, at least when I used to do them, and that's one of the reasons why I stopped doing criminal defenses, because, as I said, our biggest issue in domestic violence, I got tired, I got stressed of being caught up between leaders, families, coming to beg, it was a mistake, can we drop all this, all that. Most of these domestic family gets involved, or friends, they start guilty, tripping, unaambiwa, sasa unajua ukiendelea na hiyo kesi atarestiwa, hata nini, drop the case. For girlfriend, boyfriend, if you want to go, you have to cooperate. So you can't drop the charges. You have to be a witness for the government. And I say this because there are some people who come, you know, America, mnaamka siku moja, girlfriend, boyfriend, mnajipata mmeishi. 5 years, 7 years, I'm Joanna, you're still living. You've invested time. Shit happens. And you have to leave. You can benefit through U visa. But I also said U visa because it's wide, because even at work, something may happen. Not even that. You can have gone to Walmart. Kuna vita imetokea Walmart. You witness it. Police came. You're a witness. As long as you're cooperating with the government, we can get you. We just have to get certification from that police department that you're a witness and you're cooperating, and we can do a U visa for you. Whether you understand? But I talk about U visa in terms of girlfriend, boyfriend, because that's where most people ask me, hatukuwa married na huyu mtu, what do I do, Sarah? That's where U visa comes in. Now, I'm going to move to the Q&A, or something that you want me to talk about specifically. Kuna mtu? Nani ata? Question? Yes. Kuna mic ingine ama ni moja? Okay. Okay. If it's this, kuna ingine? Okay. Then you'll help me ask and I answer. I was gonna go there. Okay. This gentleman right here.
Just give me a second to this one switched on. I think I was gonna ask, you say you talk about the 2 passports.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for reminding me that. So let me talk about that, because that's one of the things that in Atua Faith, there's miscommunication. The US government doesn't care how you entered Kenya. They only care about how you left US and how you enter US. So when you check in online, and this is where I tell people, learn to check in online most of the time and enter your passport online. They'll ask you to enter your passport. Just because you're going to use your Kenyan passport to get into Kenya, don't enter your Kenyan passport if you're a US citizen. Enter your American passport as your exit passport. Once you've checked in and entered your your US passport, when you get to the airport, just like, let's even assume you have a visa, hata when you're on a visa, When you get to the airport, the agent will ask you, do you have a visa or how are you going to enter? They just need to see you have a Kenyan passport to enter there. So technically, you checked out and you're traveling with your American passport because that's what you checked in with and that's the information that is on your ticket, the American passport. At the airport, they just need to see. They are not going to be entering. They just need to see you have a way to enter. Just like if you have a visa, they don't ask you to enter your visa when you check in. When you get at the embassy, you show them your printed ama your QR code ya visa yako. It's the same reasoning. The mistake people do is because you're using this Kenyan passport kuingia, you enter your Kenyan passport when checking in. Then at that time, you're traveling out with a Kenyan passport because that is the passport that you have used. But as long as you use your American passport to exit and it's showing, that's all you need. You can check into Kenya whoever way you check in. And when exiting, again, you travel with your American passport, you enter your American passport. You have left the country with your American passport, you have entered with your American passport. Where people end up in trouble is when you're entering your Kenyan passport thinking because you ndio unatumia kuingia Kenya na hakuna mtu anakuuliza ukitoka hapo umetoka na passport gani. Then now when you're coming back, they're showing only an entry and no exit on that passport that you're using. So make sure you're using that, okay? I also tell people on a side note, I saw you in a minute. I also tell people on a side note, I travel a lot, for those of you who know me. I love traveling, it's my passion, it's my hobby. I came from China 5 days ago. I came from China and Japan 5 days ago. I always tell people, it's also good to protect you. Think about it. You travel like I traveled to China. Let's say, you know, China has a way, like, kuna countries, when you go with a Kenyan passport, you get lower fees for your entry visa, or they allow you. Let's say something, like when I go to Nigeria, let's say something happens, I'm in Nigeria, and I use my Kenyan passport to avoid paying the Nigerian visa. Who do you think is going to, which government do you think is going to be reported to that when I'm in trouble? Is it the Kenyan government or the American government? Keeping in mind, I traveled using a Kenyan passport. Is the Kenyan. But if you use American, it's the American. You have to make a call. Which of those two governments do you think with your citizen is in trouble? Is really, you understand? That's why I say always travel with an American passport. American government doesn't care how you enter there as long as they can see you exited with a US passport and you entered with a US passport. Oh, okay, go ahead.
All right.
Oh, okay, I have a question. My name is Helen. I want a clarification on traveling back. I've gone out with the American passport to Kenya, exit. I get into Kenya, I enter with a Kenyan passport. I don't want to pay for the visa. Coming back, tell me how to exit Kenya.
Kenya will only, unless you have dual citizenship, which I'm so excited. About 2 days ago, nimepata dual citizenship yangu. Something I applied in 2018. Imagine saying no, nimeget. But I'm excited, at least now they'll be able to stamp both my passport. Even if they don't, remember, even if they don't, you exited through with an American passport, right? They only stamped your Kenya because Kenya will only stamp the visa. Most countries, the passport in your ulingia nayo ndio watastamp. Because you did not enter with an American, they will stamp the Kenyan passport. There is no problem. When you land here, because of terrorist act, the immigration officer normally will ask you, which countries have you visited? The reason they're asking you that is for safety, for security measures. They just want to know which other countries you went. Did you go to the terrorist country? You just have to have proof that, yeah, you visited Kenya only. But they will typically, that's a typical question, a standard question to ask you which countries you visited before coming back. There is no issue. You just have to tell them the truth. Yes, you entered. And there's nothing wrong about entering. As long as Kenya wamekukubali kuingisha, with or without that American passport, it doesn't matter. What Kenya decides how they'll enter you to the country, it has nothing to do with the American government. You can still travel and you won't have no issue. As long as, again, as I said, use your American passport to exit. Have that American passport in your itinerary, not the Kenyan passport.